What?
Well,
Why are you shaking your head?
you're welcome. We'll do it live. What is up? Welcome to the week 2 edition of Matchup Points here at FantasyPoints.com. I'm John Hansen. There's Graham Barfield, and there is Brett Whitefield, our guy Tommy T-Bone on the other side of the glass, producing this here Fantasy Points Jam. Well, guys, I'm sure you're all doing well. Let me subtweet this real quick and tweet it on out that we're going live. We're not taking questions for this live stream, although if you want to give it a shot when we're talking about a specific game, we might address it, we might hit it, but this is all about the data plus the film with Brett and Graham and myself. So as soon as I hit this, I'll do that and tweet that out to my people. All right, let's get into it here as week number 2 kicks off tonight in Miami as the Dolphins take on the Bills. Well, I don't really know where else to start, but in the Miami Dolphins backfield, Graham, and I'll actually start with you. And what are you expecting out of the Raheem Mostert-less Dolphins? Devon Achane is, in fact, active here. You're looking at Jeff Wilson as a safe, steady play, or are you actually considering Jalen Wright this week?
Yeah, it'll be interesting. We were going back and forth in Discord. I think Wilson will probably get the first shot, but if Jalen Wright rips off a long game, we'll probably see a little bit more of him. Devon Achane is just a must play. You know, we've gotten some questions in Discord. I've seen some questions on Twitter about Achane. If you have him, I have him everywhere. Just keep playing him. Probably going to be a little bit of a limited role here, but even Achane on 12, 13 touches can get it done. But yeah, John, I think we'll see Wilson probably 6, 7 carries, probably get Jalen Wright a little bit going. You know, I think this game really kind of really hinges around, for me at least, you know, this Dolphins passing game. And Brett, I'll kick it to you for your thoughts on Tua. Obviously, Tyreek Waddle went off last week, but what do you think of Tua? It was kind of an up and down game, no?
That's the story of Tua's career, right? Like,
right, yeah.
He's going to play the ball in schedule really well. He's going to get throws out on time in rhythm, and then when he's asked to deviate from that, he gets a little hairy. He starts missing throws and gets out of rhythm very quickly. So I think more of the same here. Buffalo's probably got a little bit more talented defense, although they are down Taron Johnson, which is kind of a big deal. He's probably their best defensive player all the way around. Losing him is definitely a big deal. I would expect, Buffalo kind of got chopped up on the ground last week, by Arizona. I would expect them to bounce back a little bit. I don't think Buffalo is that bad of a run defense team, but this could be a big spot for the Miami rush defense if Buffalo doesn't tighten some stuff up.
Brett, what did you see last week out of the passing game for the Bills? I saw them spread the ball around. I can tell you that to anyone not named Dalton Kincaid, but, a pretty good start, I thought. But again, spreading that rock around. Do you have any thoughts? Keon Coleman, I was big on Shakir this week. I mean, the dude sure made a lot with 3 damn targets, but that's the problem. He only had 3 targets.
Yeah, I like the Buffalo passing game this whole, I really like what they're going to do tonight. Like, Miami's defense is in a rough spot. They've lost a ton of D-line talent. We called it last week, right? Their edge rush just isn't there. They had one of the lowest pressure rates in the league last week. I think all these guys, if they get targets, should have an opportunity. It will be interesting to see the consolidation. It seems like once they get in the red zone, Keon Coleman just automatically gets green lighted. And the funny thing about that is I don't think his game is really there yet. I think he's better between the 20s right now than he is in the red zone. I know they want to force it there. Dalton Kincaid's usage was really interesting because he was on the field for 80% of snaps or 80% of routes run, but he just didn't see the target volume. So I'm wondering if maybe they make a concerted effort to change that, get the ball out of Josh's hands a little quicker, play things fast.
It felt like they were just taking what the defense gave them in week 1, Brett.
Yeah, that's for sure true. In the run game too, like Arizona's been pretty bad against the run for a while. So Joe Brady just pounded the rock with James Cook and Ray Davis in the second half, and Josh Allen in the red zone. It is what it is. They're going to do a lot more of that than we're used to. We saw it last year down the stretch. They're going to be a gap run scheme, and they like to control the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, and Graham, it is James Cook o'clock tonight, don't you think? I mean, with Brady there, we're looking at between 15 and 20 carries most likely for Mr. Cook.
Yeah, Cook is like the pinnacle of an empty calorie RB2. Like the ball is going his way, but when they get close to the goal line, John, it's going to be Josh Allen. We saw it again last week. Cook got stuffed near the goal line. I think it was a carry inside the 5. But yeah, really strong usage week 1 for Cook. The big question is just what his touchdown upside is here. But yeah, I mean, even going back to last year, he's just a lock for 14, 15 touches. He was the special today, right? That was the special, John?
No. I actually went Jonnu Smith as the Thursday night special. Okay. And Brett, you didn't mention Teron Johnson. I think it's Teron. I'm going to go with Teron. You can go Teron. But Teron Johnson's out. Yeah, exactly. Jonnu did run 71% of the snaps from the slot last week. The Bills tend to kind of funnel stuff inside. They're pretty tough to throw on the outside. They've kind of handled Tyreek. And any thoughts on the Thursday night special? Jonnu, I did nail Alan Lazard on Monday night. So he's kind of Lazard-like in that everyone thinks they forgot he's in the league.
Right. No, I like it, John. I'll tell you why. So Buffalo's down their entire middle of the defense that we've seen for years, whether that's
Matt Milano,
covers linebacker, Teron Johnson now gone, Poyer now gone, Micah Hyde now gone. There's going to be a lot of communication issues in the back end. They just don't have the talent they used to back there. I know they have this draft and develop plan in Buffalo. You see good franchises do this where maybe they value the guys they have more than we do, but we haven't seen the performance yet. And so I think this is a good spot to target for sure.
Yeah, and Graham, real quick on Cook, I understand the touchdown problem, but all I care about is the over the carry prop and the rushing yards because I'm in, baby.
Hey, there you go. That's all we need. That's all we need tonight.
That's all we need. I'm addicted to winning. I can't stop. I mean, I can't stop. Send help. Raiders at Ravens, 1 p.m. on Sunday here. Well, what did you think of the utilization, Brett, of Zay Flowers? It was much of the same. Only one game, but it was a little disappointing. I'm like, you took 8 months for that? It looks like week 20 of last year. I mean, it looked like a continuation of last year.
Yeah, it really did. In fact, it was almost a return to that, right? Because it seemed like towards the end of the season they started getting Zay involved downfield a little bit more. I think it could be game script dependent, and when they feel like they're going to have leaky offensive line issues, they're going to speed up that clock, and Lamar, they're going to get those dump offs to Isaiah Likely and to Zay Flowers. And I think this could be another situation where they're going to have to do that with Max Crosby going against Roger Rosengarten or Patrick McCarry, whoever's out there. That's a problem. And they didn't do too great with Chris Jones playing out there last week. So, this could be another game script where they got to get the ball out quickly. And it seems like they really want to take hits off of Lamar, which is really funny because when they're trailing in games, in games they lose, Lamar averages over 100 rushing yards a game, right? So it's counterintuitive where they start playing this nickel and dime stuff, but it ends up costing Lamar late in the game. I do think maybe we're setting up for another example of that, though.
But Graham, it's Derrick Henry o'clock as well here, don't you think? Because like we all know, most game script dependent running back in the league is averaging, like 120 rushing yards a game in their wins. They're like 9-point favorites. I'm actually shocked that I saw on DraftKings the line was like only 71.5 yards. I mean, your thoughts on how big Derrick Henry might be in week 2?
Yeah, I think you and I have telepathy because that was where my brain went in this game here. Derrick Henry, huge favorite. You were noting the splits. They're crazy for fantasy. 22.6 PPR points per game in wins, just 12.5 points per game in losses. I don't think the Ravens are losing this bounce back spot here at home. I love Henry this week. The other thing, John, is obviously we saw Justice Hill kind of as expected sub in for Derrick Henry. Maybe not as much though. Hill had 26 routes to Henry's 8. So Henry better be scoring those touchdowns, and I think he will this week. It is a little bit of a concern for his fantasy stock long term, but this is such a good spot for Henry this week.
Brett, back to you. Long-term concerns, short-term concerns for Mark Andrews after last week. I mean, we all kind of knew it was coming. Likely to happen, like be a bigger factor here. Maybe they go 12 all day long, and maybe they can support 2 top 15 tight ends like the Eagles did back in 2019. But how worried would you be, or are you, if you have Mandrews?
I'm not worried at all. I've actually scooped him up in a couple spots where he's basically free because people panicked. Here's the deal with Isaiah Likely. very talented player. This isn't anything against him, but not all 9 of his catches last week were on routes he ran that were within 5 yards of the line of scrimmage. Mark Andrews is out there running routes. He's still separating. Chiefs gave him a ton of extra attention. They couldn't get the ball downfield, period. I think that changes as the season goes on. Likely we'll definitely have game script games like that where ball's coming out quick. He's going to be the check down guy. That's fine. I still love Mark Andrews. I think he's super talented, way too talented to be forgotten about, and I think he's probably their best pass catcher on the team still.
Rashad Bateman last week, the Thursday night special, was actually the second leading wide receiver in the damn game. The ass numbers look good, the separation, but perhaps he almost has no chance. He can't even get going, can't even start, really. The career, it seems like maybe Lamar holding him back just a little bit. But let's move over to the other side of things. Graham, how surprised were you by Alexander Madison, our 59th president? I didn't pay much attention to him, honestly. I guess I screwed that one up because not that I pushed Zamir White, but I was like, all right, you know what? I mean, if I'm in round 8 and, I go 0 RB or I go real light at RB, I mean, maybe I'll take Zamir White, but it sure looks like he is game script dependent big time. I didn't think he'd be that game script dependent. We all knew there was to an extent, but your thoughts on this backfield?
Yeah, I was out on Zamir, had him pretty low in best ball. I didn't think it'd be this bad, though, to your point. I kind of expected a little bit of a split, but man, I mean, Zamir obviously, ended up playing, fewer snaps than Madison, got more carries, but the passing down work, I think, is what you were really banking on if you were drafting Zamir. Is like, okay, we know this Raiders offense is not going to be very good. Their offensive line is just okay. Gardner Minshew,
give him a couple grabs a game,
Yeah, just give him a couple grabs a game, but that doesn't look to be the case. Madison looked good, by the way, on that 30-yard touchdoand. That was probably the most explosive play he's had in the last couple years. Brett, what are your thoughts?
Give him a couple weeks, though, probably.
If we have any first read listeners in here, Joe and I have been battling this topic all off season. Yeah, I've been saying Madison is the guy to watch there. I thought he would be the snap leader over Zamir White. My co-host Joe Marino felt the opposite, but I've been calling this for a while. Madison, here's the thing: he was miscast in Minnesota. That's an outside zone scheme. Alexander Madison doesn't have the juice to win the corner frequently in outside zone. He's now with Alec Pierce, who's a much more downhill inside zone duo run scheme where he can use his pads, play behind his pads, and he's a much better receiver than Zamir White too. Much better pass protector than Zamir White. Zamir White's never been good at that stuff going back to Georgia. So I just think this is likely to be a doom split all season where it's close to 50-50 all the way through.
Yeah, and I think a small sample size of Zamir White receiving late last year kind of clouded my judgment. I didn't give him a lot, but again, I thought he'd catch a couple of balls. Let's move on to the Chargers and the Panthers. Brett, I'll go to you. Like, how worrisome and disconcerting was week 1? I mean, the O-line was awful. Bryce Young correspondingly also awful. I know it's only one game, but it's like, I always default to, like, you prepared for 6 to 8 months for that. So what were your thoughts?
So mechanically, Bryce Young is completely broken. Like, he cannot throw a football without standing on his tippy toes. This was an issue, right? So next time we're having this debate about size limitations, you have to remember Bryce Young. Right. He can't deliver the football with a set base. It's impossible for him. So, and to make matters worse, I didn't think the offensive line actually played that bad. But when you're holding the ball for nearly 3 seconds every drop back, what are you expecting?
Yeah.
I mean, Bryce just was not seeing it. Receivers were not getting open. They have issues on issues there. Hopefully they clean it up a little bit. The whole league was kind of rusty this past week, so I don't know that we want to, jump off a diving board here. But ultimately, I'm pretty dang concerned, though. I'll say that for sure.
Yeah. Well, Graham, and I apologize again for saying anything about Chuba Hubbard getting freaking volume last week. That so Miles Sanders-esque to do that. But Graham, how about our guy Ladd McConkey? I mean, it wasn't explosive. It wasn't, oh my God, just productive, leading the team in targets, receptions, receiving yards, scored a nice little nifty move there. He's a good lad.
He's a great lad. I think the problem is this offense is not a great lad, John. 26 pass attempts for Justin Herbert. Man, that's just not going to get it done. very bullish opener for McConkey, though. I mean, led the team in targets. He was third on the team in routes behind Palmer and Johnston. He's going to be like kind of a Khalil Shakir on that like wide receiver 3-4 borderline all year. But McConkey's a baller. There's no doubt about it. I just see this as a very, very low volume pass, basically run first offense. And especially this week, John. I mean, this Panthers defensive line just got absolutely steamrolled last week by the Saints. J.K. Dobbins is all the way back. No, I'm joking. Dobbins did look great last week. This is an amazing spot for Dobbins. I think if you have Dobbins, you drafted him. I think the only man in the universe who drafted a ton of J.K. Dobbins was Scott Barrett, ultimate contrarian. And, you're basically playing Dobbins, I think, this week is like a top 20 play. Brett, I want to throw it to you for your thoughts on Dobbins. Obviously, he was running through some huge holes, but it was good to see a little bit of juice back, right?
The cutting ability looked back.
Yeah.
That's what really stood out to me. Like, the thing I loved about JK is when he cuts, he basically gets parallel with the ground. Like, it's pretty cool to see. He doesn't take any speed off of him. So he had a lot of that back, which is a good sign.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, not to be like hot takey here, but I feel like I haven't seen him look that good in over 2 years. Like maybe
it was
maybe
unexpected.
Even 3.
I'm a huge J.K. Dobbins stan. That was not expected. I mean, coming off the Achilles, coming off the knee, out-snap Gus Edwards 59% to 41%. I don't think we can expect
Is Gus dead?
Bell cow. No,
Is
I
Gus
don't think
dead?
we can expect. No, we can't expect Dobbins to be like a bell cow. I just don't think his body would hold up. But I mean, he's the definite 2 there now. I wouldn't say he's
the
dead.
pass catcher.
Yeah.
Who Dobbins?
Right.
Yeah. That's what really stuck out to me. 16 to 5 in routes run. Dobbins versus Edwards there. That's a really good sign for Dobbins.
Yeah, no question. Let's move on here. The week 2 edition of Matchup Points here at FantasyPoints.com with me, John Hansen, Graham Barfield, and Brett Whitefield. The New Orleans Saints at the Dallas Cowboys. Well, we know for Dallas, Brett, it's a choice matchup. Like maybe they have some O-line issues, but I don't see a big pass rush here from the New Orleans Saints. They play a lot of man, and we know Dak and CD crush man.
It's about as simple as that. You go line up, play man against Dallas. You're going to get burnt a few times. That's for dang sure. I love CD this week. I mean, I think if you drafted him 1 overall, this is the week you drafted him for right off the bat here. So
I thought Brandon Cooks too looked good.
He always does. He's just consistent, steady Eddie. He's the perfect wide receiver too, man.
He is the perfect wide receiver too for this offense too. Jake Ferguson's going to be out this week with a knee injury. 17 of 34 targets from Prescott went either to Lamb or Cooks. Cooks is a pretty good play this week.
How about for New Orleans? Well, two main things. What do we do with Olave and Al Kamara, man, Mr. Volume over here? But Brett, we're looking at Dallas with Micah Parsons putting on the pressure. O-line's a little sus. I mean, how many checkdowns does Alvin Kamara get this week? 12 from Derek Carr?
Yeah. I mean, it might be. So here, hold on. The New Orleans Saints offensive line held up pretty well last week against the Panthers. I think they had like the second lowest pressure rate allowed at just 26.9%. I do think we got to give them some credit there. However, I do, Dallas's D-line is so ferocious on the edge with Parsons and DeMarcus Lawrence. It seems like
who are we worried about with the Panthers over here? I mean, no offense here. I mean, pass rush wise,
not really. It's still the NFL though. Holding a team to 3 pressures on, 30-something dropbacks is nuts. So I mean, that's pretty nuts. But yeah, I do think Kamara is a smash for, for some checkdowns. But I think I like Rashid Shaheed a little bit in this game too.
Yeah. Really?
I love Shaheed in the spot, man. Yeah, Dallas plays a ton of zone. What do you think of Mike Zimmer? Obviously, great coach. Trevon Diggs coming back from the ACL. No Deron Bland.
That's true.
Yeah,
I think he was.
How much more zone are they playing with Zimmer these days?
Well, it's 84% last week,
and it's the type.
Oh, really?
Yeah, those guys are sagging back a little bit more. He's trying to get, Trayvon Diggs is such a ball hawk. He's trying to get that ball hawkiness out of him. So he's eyes on the quarterback, playing cushion. But it's just there's a lot of free yards underneath to take.
They're going to have to chuck in this game, too. Obviously, they're big dogs. I'm not too concerned about Olave or Shaheed. Obviously, Carr only needed to throw it, 23, 24 times last week to dust the Panthers. So, weird game script. Saints are going to have to throw a ton here.
I do see the Saints played a man 33% of the dropbacks, sixth most. I guess that's still not a shit ton here.
That's like a lot. That's a lot in today's NFL, though. I mean, to run
Yeah,
man on
that's
a
kind of
third
what
the
I'm saying.
Dropbacks is kind of a lot. Yeah.
Do you think Brett digs on Olave like in a travel environment, or no? They're just playing because I know Zimmer doesn't like to travel.
No, we're not projecting a shadow there,
Okay.
and I don't even think Diggs is the type of corner you'd want shadowing, anyways.
Gotcha. Sure. All right. Moving on here. Next game on the week 2 docket. Fantasy Bonanza, Tampa at Detroit. Brett, I'll go to you. You are Mr. Detroit. Your thoughts on what we saw from Tampa's offense? You know, Jalen McMillan, little Bucky Irving. It's like getting some youth and juice injected like immediately into the offense from last year. It's a new offense, I know. And then your Lions, how equipped are they to slow down Baker because they couldn't do it last year in the playoffs?
Yeah, I mean, so week 1, Tampa looked awesome. I thought their offense, it was a good matchup for them, obviously, but under Liam Cohen, they're going to run that Sean McVay style outside zone with a ton of yak reliance. And Baker did a really good job getting the ball out quickly. Jalen McMillan looks good. Mike Evans looked good. Chris Godwin didn't have the game we wanted him to have, but I thought he still looked good. Bucky Irvin providing that nice change of pace. All the way around, it looked good. I do think Detroit is better equipped to handle them this year. A little bit better pass rush. Also, I'm not sure Luke Godke's going to play for the Bucs, and then you got DJ Reader coming back for the Lions. This Lions defense is definitely improved with their cornerbacks, also their defensive line. So that said, it's the highest implied point total of the week, right? And then we've got evidence. The last time these two teams played was 56 points scored in the playoffs there. So they like to have a little bit of a banger.
Well, Graham,
it's gonna be a great game.
Yeah, your thoughts on the Jameson Williams role, the huge week 1. I think it'll be an Amon-Ra game. And anything else you have here? I mean, Goff against the blitz is always interesting, and certainly Tampa blitzes more than most.
Yeah, they do blitz a lot. On JMO, man, just wheels up. I had one regret last week, and it was saying sit JMO. Just saying, hey, look, I wanted to see it. We've had so many ups and downs with this player. 90% route share, 9 targets. Obviously getting scheme stuff over the middle. Another good spot here against the Bucs. Huge, total, obviously, as Brett was saying. I think this is a good bounce back spot for Goff. He was a little up and down last week. He had the big throws to JMO, but he made a couple of mistakes, a couple of misfires. Obviously, anytime Goff's at home with a big total, especially this one, Detroit has an implied team total based on the over/under at 29.5 points. It's nearly 3 points clear of Kansas City. Bucs are going to be without Antoine Winfield in the backfield this week. They're also banged up a little bit in the secondary with some of their depth. Really good game. On the opposite side, Baker threw it 38 and I think 45 times in their 2 meetings against Detroit last season. So the pass volume is going to be amazing for Bucs. And I think this is a play all your guys kind of spot in this game. If you have a guy in this game, you just play him.
I'm really feeling it. Yeah, I was going to say, Brett, I'm feeling it with Amon-Ra. Sees a 27.7% boost to his yards per route run when the quarterback is blitzed. But what do you have on Laporta?
Yeah, I mean, last year the Bucs were awful against tight ends. They're down Antoine Winfield this week, which is probably their best tight end matchup weapon. Levante David's still a good linebacker, but he doesn't run like he used to. He's we saw it last year. Laporta carved him up pretty good. So I really think this is a great spot. Also, Tampa Bay plays a ton of cover 3. And they'll mix in cover 3 with some too high, and Jared Goff has absolutely shredded them. They played twice last year, and I think he had almost 700 yards between the 2 games. And this is a great spot for Goff, great spot for Laporta.
Back to the Bucs real quick to you, Brett. Do you see anything changing in that backfield with Bucky Irving, stepping into a pretty sizable role? Rashad was still brilliant in the passing game, but I mean, look, it is what it is. He's not producing on the ground, Rashad.
So Bucky had the 31-yard run that came on like a 3rd and 8 draw or whatever.
True.
You take that off the table. They were relatively similar in their production. So,
okay. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, it's clear though they want to use Irving a little bit. Some of that was game here, right? As the game went on, they were blowing out the Commanders. Irving got on the field a little bit.
Yeah, I looked into that. The early down carries were kind of the same split in the first 3 quarters. Because I had the same thought, Brett. It was like maybe Bucky got a couple extra carries in the fourth, because I didn't watch the end of that game, especially after the Commanders' game plan. But yeah, it was pretty even split. I think, John, this is kind of like the Travis Etienne corollary. We'll get to the Jags, but Bucky Irving, Tank Bigsby, these guys can take a few early down carries, but as long as Rashad keeps getting the receiving work, like you were mentioning, keeps getting the goal line work, he's going to be just fine for fantasy.
Yeah. Indy Colts at Green Bay Packers. Well, I don't know about the Green Bay Packers being just fine for fantasy.
Ooh.
Graham, to you, is it a full fade for all the receivers with Malik Willis in? I would imagine yes.
Yeah, full fade. Malik Willis, fun fact, has never thrown for more than 100 yards in a NFL game. Obviously, LaFleur is a good coach. I think he's going to be able to scheme some stuff up to Jaden Reed. But, I mean, Malik Willis, John, to me is worth like 5 to 6 points negatively off the Packers total, maybe even more. I just wrote up Josh Jacobs as he's going to get the ball as many times as he can get this week without throwing up. And Jaden Reed's probably going to get a couple screens. That's about it. Yeah, full fade on Romeo Doubs, full fade on Watson. And we're just going to cross our fingers that Jordan Love only misses maybe 2 weeks.
Well, anything to add there, Brett? Real buzzkill here for the Green Bay Packers.
Yeah,
I thought the backup running back looked good, by the way.
Emmanuel Wilson, yeah.
Yeah.
I was just going to say it's not really the platform to do it, but there's got to be a case study in why Green Bay decided to go with Malik Willis over Sean Clifford and Michael Pratt when those guys absolutely balled out all preseason. I don't understand what happened. Obviously, we can't really get into it here. We don't have the time, but that's worth. I want to pick someone's brain on that one. That's weird to me.
Yeah, I chopped it up with Michael Pratt, man. Really nice dude. Like really, maybe he's too nice. I don't know, man. That was a little weird. How about the Colts? Not weird. Anthony Richardson kind of did what he does. He was sloppy, but in money downs and near the goal, he comes through here. I'm a little worried about volume for Pittman, but Brett, any thoughts on the tape on Anthony Richardson? I mean, we need a little bit more volume here. I don't think we're going to get it this week, though.
The crazy thing about Richardson's tape, he had 7 or 8 bad misses. Almost every single one of them he was throwing with anticipation, like capital A anticipation, where he's anticipating the break and just ripping it. And I'm like, that's cool that you can do that or want to do that, but we can dial that back even a little bit and just try to wait till you see it a little bit. So one thing that stood out to me, though, he got the ball out quickly. He wasn't sitting there holding it forever like a lot of mobile quarterbacks do. He was legitimately trying to be a pocket passer and run the offense the way it was designed. Obviously, he had a lot of opportunities because Houston's defense was a freaking mess. But
I mean, what do you think about Pittman, Graham, and volume? Like he caught 100 balls last year, I believe, right? Granted, a lot of that was with the Gardner. But now it's like you got Pierce and A.D. Mitchell, these clear out downfield guys, and Richardson's big arm. I feel like that is a staple of their passing game. I just wonder about the volume for Pittman.
Yeah, I've been concerned about Pittman all offseason, John, and now you layer in the fact that Josh Downs should be back, came back to a limited practice this week. I love Josh Downs, man. Really good player. I think he's going to make a big impact down the stretch. A.D. Mitchell, I don't know if he's going to be an ass man all season, but he was definitely an ass man week 1, led all receivers in separation rate and win rate in week 1. Yeah, it's definitely a concern for Pittman. Obviously, he got 8 targets, but a lot of his stuff is kind of like the RPO, I wouldn't say spam targets, but he gets a lot of that kind of stuff.
He is the slant on their RPO plays on like every one of them.
Yeah, it's spammy, but it's also like he's kind of good at it, so I don't want to knock him too much for it, Brett. But at the same time, it's not a super valuable role by expected fantasy points. Pittman was only 1.5 points behind A.D. Mitchell last week, and as Brett noted, Richardson has a freaking howitzer and overshot Mitchell a couple times. I'm pretty concerned about Pittman in this spot and long term. John, real quick, we got to talk about our guy JT. 95% snap share week 1.
Can we get a target though, man?
Yeah, I know. Can we get a single check down from Anthony Richardson? One, please. One.
Yeah, I know. Well, they literally have nothing. Really, I would say. I mean, Trey Sermon. Maybe he's found something here, but I mean, he was a decent prospect. 3rd round pick whose career's been in the toilet. It's all JT, but like, again, we got to get I lost the damn prop here. It was like over 13 receiving yards. I'm like, really? 13? Can't get 13? Thought maybe we could get that on one catch. They had 0 catches.
That's like one good screen from JT is 13, 14 yards.
I was just going to say,
I guess it was a dumb.
Yeah, I think this week you might see them try to get Richardson in rhythm. Seeing the misses he had last week, it's like, cool, let's scheme up some easier throws for him to get him in a rhythm. It's kind of what we've seen the Bears try to do with Caleb through the preseason in week 1. I think maybe you see that this week for sure.
Yeah, exactly. Cleveland Browns at Jacksonville Jaguars. And Brett, back to you with the film. I mean, I guess there are some data points here that might be decent, I guess. I don't know. There's probably no data point that can justify Deshaun Watson's tape. Although, I guess you saw Amari Cooper drop a touchdown. I mean, how bad was it and how hopeless do you think it is? No Njoku this week, at least.
It's pretty hopeless. I think he led the league in off-target throw rate last week. He's not delivering the ball accurately, and he's not seeing it either. You watching the tape, he's holding the ball for, gosh, there was dropbacks where it was like 4 or 5 seconds. You know, he's got Jerry Jeudy running open. I know we're workshopping a stat called basically like unrealized separation for an offense. Like how many times do they have guys open where it's not being targeted? There's some nuance we got to get through there, but I think he would basically lead in that stat from week 1 for sure.
U.S. We can call it U.S.
Judy did that last year too, Brett.
Yeah, you can't catch a break going from Russ to Deshaun. It's like, oh.
Yeah.
I mean, you have like Watson's better against man, Judy's better against man, Cooper's better against man. Jaguars played the most man coverage in the league in week 1, yet I guess it's all a moot point. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, Brett, I wanted to get your thoughts on that because, you know, Tyson Campbell's going to miss this game. He has a hamstring injury. You know, Jags played a ton of man. It kind of worked, but I think that was more so Tua just being up and down. Really ballsy decision to play so much man.
That is ballsy.
Tua and Tyreek. But what were your thoughts on Jags scheme? Obviously, new DC up there.
Yeah, it was super strange. I mean, trust me, if you can play man, I like doing it.
Yeah.
It was more of like a 2 high man, so, you know, cover 2 man basically.
You don't see that anymore. You never see cover 2 man anymore. Man.
And the crazy thing is they didn't have a single pressure on the quarterback where they didn't blitz. So they weren't getting home with, like, they were actually kind of lucky. They got off pretty easy, I felt like, in that game. I mean, they did lose.
Still lost.
They still
Doesn't
lost.
matter.
But they were in control of the game until the Etienne fumble or whatever. And
that was the most Jags loss of all time, Brett. I'm completely immune to those types of losses at this point.
I'm a Lions fan, Graham. We're in the same boat here, buddy.
Yeah, that's very true.
Yeah.
Well, I'm Graham. You're Mr. Jaguar. Like, we were panicking, not me. Others were panicking with Christian Kirk last year, right at this exact time. I said, don't worry about it. The coaches are just dumb in week 1. And then week 2, he had 14 targets. I don't know about this one, though, man, because, Greg Newsome is damn good here. But your thoughts on Kirk and Ingram? I'm guessing it's going to be, if anyone bounces back this week between the two, it's Ingram. But your thoughts?
Yeah, Ingram had the big game against the Browns last year, but that was a game where Kirk missed, and that's where Ingram just went off without Christian Kirk last year, and basically because Trevor Lawrence had no one else to throw to. I think it's different this time around too, John, because Brian Thomas is legit, really legit. Scott had a great stat about Brian's, coming out of college, basically how he did most of his work off one route. I don't know if we should have held that against him, but when I was watching him this past week, man, the route running looks phenomenal. Already. I think he's ready for a bigger role. This week for Kirk, it's a tough matchup, man. As you noted, Newsome's a really good slot corner. Last week, Browns held the Cowboys' receivers to just 49 yards on 15 targets when lined up in the slot, and obviously that's really, really good players. Kirk's like a low-end wide receiver 3. But, man, I think Brian Thomas is just like dripping with upside in this offense. He's a really good player already.
Yeah, Brett, I feel like a complete jackass because I didn't give him enough love this summer. I thought maybe we had a much steeper learning curve than the route participation and, the underneath intermediate stuff. I was shocked. I mean, maybe you weren't shocked. Your thoughts on what you saw?
A classic case of you can't knock a guy for what he wasn't asked to do. We just
Exactly.
we didn't see him run routes. That didn't necessarily mean he couldn't.
Of course.
I remember Scott Barrett and I watched him together late one night, and we actually brought in Danny Heifetz for the call. And there were a couple. I think he ran like 3 slants in one game, and all 3 of them were just absolute perfect, meticulous footwork, great technique. And I was just hanging my hat on that, just hoping this is what we get on every route moving forward. And he already looks like a great product. One other note, though, real quick, I want to throw at you. Cleveland was abysmal against tight ends down the stretch last year. They were really bad. I think bottom 5 in expected fantasy points against tight ends. So I think the Evan Ingram bounce back is relatively likely here.
So real quick, glad you said that. Is Brian Thomas a number 1 receiver in the Jacksonville Jaguar offense? Like wide out?
By target volume? I think he maybe leads them in receiving yards, but I could still see Kirk having more targets.
Yeah, okay. I think it's going to be really close. I think we see Kirk with like 120 and then BTJ with like 110. And then Ingram is like 105, 110.
BTJ's yards per catch could be nasty, though.
Yeah.
Well, this one will be easy. San Fran at Minnesota. Vikings, a lot of too high looks. Man, Debo, Ayuk, Purdy, they crush it. So I think the Niner passing game is going to go off. Graham, I don't know if you agree, but I'm feeling it with Purdy now going forward. Maybe the McCaffrey injury is a problem. They're going to get Ricky Pearsall back. They have too many weapons. I mean, they got to throw it a little bit more, don't you think? I'm thinking he gets 2 to 3 touchdowns like every week going forward.
Oh, yeah. This is a really good bounce back spot, too. Obviously, we noted last week their secondary is just really good. Week 1 was probably going to be a little bit of a run game from the Niners anyway. To that point, John, Vikings played really good run defense last season, only allowed 3.8 yards per carry. They were even better last week, man. They smothered the Giants, 3.2 yards per carry. Obviously, add Dallas Turner to that mix, they're even better. Niners can get off against anybody, but this is a significantly tougher matchup for Jordan Mason or Christian McCaffrey, whoever's back there. I think Purdy makes a ton of sense this week. Debo is going to go off if they run too high, like you said. Those coverage splits always favor Debo. We've been all over that for years. And, you layer in the fact that maybe McCaffrey doesn't play again or he's limited. Man, Debo in those games is just absolute money in the bank. John, by the way, I just imagine you like sitting on your sofa when you saw the McCaffrey news on Monday. You're probably sitting down on your sofa, have the old, bowl of popcorn out like Jerry Seinfeld, popping a couple in. You're like, oh, that's too bad. That's a shame.
That's a shame. No, I have McCaffrey in literally my biggest money freaking league, and I lost by less than a point. Ooh. I had no ability to put anyone in. It was like a super flex dynasty. Yeah, absolutely. And by the way, I lost 29 grand on the last week, the injury last year.
Oh,
and it's a keeper.
Yeah, you got hurt the calf. You got hurt with the calf too. Yeah.
Exactly. That's why I was skittish all year, because I'm telling you right now, because I had 29 grand on the line. I watched every snap. McCaffrey was not right before that injury. I'm like, what is wrong with him? Boom, then he gets hurt. So I know he played well in the playoffs, but he had 3 weeks to heal up. So my contention was, okay, great. What if he gets hurt week 1? He's not going to have 3 weeks to heal up. Here we are. I mean, no, I don't wish ill will on anyone. I've actually met his dad. His dad's a great guy. So shout out to the McCaffreys. But yeah, next time, don't take a 28, 29-year-old guy when you have unicorns available who are literally 6 years younger. Talking about Bijan Robinson. But anyway, well, Brett, how do you think they handle JJ here? It looks like, I guess, Addison may not play. I mean, Charvarius Ward, you got, they travel him these days, or what do you think?
I think he's going to have a monster game. So I actually think this should be the highest implied point total of the week. I think this game got shootout written all over it. I actually picked Minnesota to win this game. I think they match up really well.
Oh, my God.
I called it last year. I picked Minnesota to win this game, and they won without Justin Jefferson.
That's true.
I'm picking it again. Here's the thing. We've got the blueprint time and time again of how to beat the 49ers. You need 2 pass-protecting tackles. I say this repeatedly ad nauseum.
Yep. They have the great pair. No
They
doubt.
got the great pair. And San Francisco's D-line depth is the worst it's ever been. Their cornerbacks cannot function when they don't get pass rush. The 49ers pass rush against the Jets was bad. And Tyron Smith and Morgan Moses, 2 new plugins there. I just really like the match. Whether you think Minnesota wins this game or not, I do think they keep it close, and I do think it's kind of a shootout. I think Purdy and all those pass weapons are awesome, and I really think Justin Jefferson and anybody in Minnesota's receiving group is gonna have a really good game here. Jalen Naylor.
It is Sam Darnold, though, Graham. It is Sam Darnold.
It is Sam Darnold. He looked all right to me, John. Pretty efficient.
Oh, he
Had the
did.
one mistake. They didn't ask too much of him. Jefferson had a great over the shoulder catch, but I think Darnold looked pretty good. A little bit tougher matchup. But it's just Justin Jefferson being so damn good at football. It's gonna always rise the tide of any quarterback that's under center for the Vikings.
Yep.
It's going to be an interesting clash here because as a Vikings person, my feeling is they're going to get their asses kicked. But we'll see. We shall see. I will bow to Brett's acumen if he gets that one right. I mean, that was a great call last year. Seattle at New England. We've got the Ken Walker situation. Graham, was there an updated Walker practice today?
He did not.
He did not. Didn't practice yesterday. I was talking to Edwin back in August. I was over at his office, and we were just going through injuries. And he's like, Ken Walker's going to have a groin issue this season. Well, turned out 1 week it's an oblique issue. Listen, Zach Charbonnet is going to be a bell cow no matter what this week. Kenny McIntosh, their third-string running back, does not have an NFL carry yet. This is the thing with Walker, man. He's such a talent, but it's been such an up and down for him. Obviously, he got an awesome role, kind of exactly what we were expecting with the bell cow role, then picks up this injury. Be interesting to see. I mean, Brett, I'll kick it to you for your thoughts on Ryan Grubb. I think we saw the run game look exactly how kind of we lined it up, right? They played a lot of 11 personnel. They spread them out. Looked great. The passing game, though, I thought was a little suspect. What did you think about Seahawks last week?
Yeah, I didn't like it.
Yeah.
I didn't like the passing game. Geno looked discernibly frustrated to me. And you're going against a defense that wasn't that great either. It's interesting too. They never got in a rhythm. Like the volume wasn't there because they just couldn't get in a rhythm. They couldn't sustain drives. That was a big issue. But a lot of that is that's Ryan Grubb. It's low ADOT to start, and you're going to rely on Yak, and then you're going to take your shots downfield once you get in that rhythm. But they never got in the rhythm to take the shots downfield. So I think that could be a problem moving forward for sure if they don't figure out how to sustain drives.
They got knocked out of rhythm literally from the opening play.
Right?
Geno threw the pick, or he had the sack, then he threw a pick. It was kind of a rough start, and it just seems like, to your point, they just really never got going.
Yep.
Brett, do you think we're looking at a travel situation with Christian Gonzalez against DK?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you can take that to the bank, and that's not a good thing either. Christian Gonzalez, he kind of punked Jamar Chase this past week. I think he allowed 3 catches.
That's impressive. First game back, too.
Yeah, 3 catches for 15 yards against Jamar Chase, and he was with him on 90% of snaps. The only time they could get Chase going was in the slot, and Gonzalez didn't follow him into the slot. And we know Metcalf ain't going in the slot, so this is going to be pretty easy for Christian to lock onto him. So they're going to have to rely on Tyler Lockett and JSN to get going. Because I think Gonzalez is that dude. Him and Joey Porter Jr., 2 of the most young, exciting corners in the league. Awesome.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
How great.
Surtain locked down Metcalf last week, too.
True.
So another tough matchup here for Metcalf. And I was saying before the show, Tyler Lockett is going to be catching 5 balls for 60 yards until he's 52 years old. It's just it's bound to happen, guys.
Yeah. I mean, it's unbelievable.
Yeah, exactly.
I had one other question here. Brett, how awesome, in your opinion, did Ramondre look? I mean, I worry about him wearing down. Like, he's Mr. Wear Down. So let's not get too excited. But, man, he looked week 1 fresh.
He looked awesome. A source told me that he's down about 8 pounds this year. His body fat percentage is next to nothing. You can see it in the wiggle. That dude is juking everybody out, running through people. Love it. He looks.
I don't know how his feet are that quick. To me, Stevenson was the best running back in football last week. He looked incredible. And they're
12 forced missed tackles or something, right?
Yeah, their line was
11.
fine too.
11.
Their line was okay. It wasn't great.
Yeah.
He's fine.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't need much room though, man. He looked awesome last week, all the way back from that ankle injury.
I hate to invoke this name, but he reminded me of like prime Lev Bell with the size foot speed combo.
Yeah.
It's elite, man. It's elite.
There's a Michigan State reference for you, right?
Stevenson's going to smash this year. We were ahead of markets on him, but I should have drafted more. He's such a good player.
Yeah, he was totally on my list as well in my little article. He was one of my top targets. But I honestly, I only got him like once or twice. I was a little worried about just the buzzkill vibes there. Like, you know what I mean? Like, we all know they're not that great, but hey, week one, Gerard Mayo seemed to have them all energized. We shall see. Moving on here, Jets, Titans. Brett, I'll go to you. You seem to be pretty dialed in with these Titans. How much of this Titan? I mean, what do you think of this matchup for the Jets offense and Aaron Rodgers? Are you at all afraid of the Titan defense here that looked good last week?
They looked great. It's hard to take week one was so weird in that most offenses struggled that it's kind of hard to take a lot away from that. But the thing that impressed me is I felt like Tennessee's D-line way outperformed my expectations. I kind of knew that rebuilt secondary should look good. On paper, they've got a really talented unit. But, man, the Tennessee they were scheming it up, creating the illusion of pressure, getting pressure. I don't know, man. It's tough because they're probably not as talented as San Francisco, and I felt like the Jets had moments they could have exploited against the 49ers. They just ultimately didn't capitalize.
Right.
I don't know how I feel about this in total. I'm sorry, guys. I don't have much here. I kind of feel like this is a toss-up game for me.
No, you're right, Brett. I didn't really have much from this game either when I was writing up start sit. It's just kind of an ugly game. It's a straightforward game, at least for fantasy. Like Brees and Garrett Wilson are just no-brainers. I do think we need to talk through Titans backfield, John. So obviously Tony Pollard started hot last week, got 16 carries. I thought it was really notable that immediately after the game, Brian Callahan wasn't hyping up Pollard, but he was saying how he regretted not getting Tyjae Spears more involved.
Yeah.
Look, we heard this entire offseason this is going to be an interchangeable backfield. I bumped up Pollard a little bit when I wrote up Market Report this week. I was like, look, it's a slight upgrade. He looks good. He's healthy. Yeah. I still think Tyjae Spears plays a ton. And look, Spears outsnapped him in passing downs last week. I'm not really totally convinced that Pollard's going to run away with this backfield. The good news is, and Brett can speak to this more, Titans' offensive line was probably maybe the second worst unit in football last year. They looked a lot better week one. Created a little bit of lanes for these guys. Derrick Henry was just running into brick walls, especially late last season. So if there's any positive sign here for this offense, it was definitely that. But I'm not totally convinced Pollard just like the runaway 1A here. I still think this is very much the interchangeable type of thing.
The thing that was so frustrating about Spears, too, is his first carry of the game went for 11 yards. It was like the second drive. He made two guys miss, then runs, finishes with his pads. I was like, oh, wow, we're going to see him the rest of the game. Nope.
Yeah.
Didn't come back on the field.
Yeah, there'll be a correction. I think there'll be a correction. I mean, I sat down with him, man. He is an awesome dude. Like, I could see he's very smart, like, intuitive football brain, basically. I'm telling you, he'll get a little bit more involved this week. Graham, real quick, are you benching Calvin Ridley? And are you worried this week? And are you just generally worried about Will Levis?
Yeah, I am benching Ridley this week. It's more so to the matchup this week. Obviously, just Jets are so good against perimeter receivers. No unit gave up fewer yards per game to outside wide receivers last year, and last week they gave up, I had pulled this up, I think it was 29 or 30 yards on 7 or 8 targets to Niners receivers. They just don't allow anything to the perimeter. And then, the Will Levis thing. Man, I'm waiting for, the good,
yeah.
I think Scott was I think Scott made the Jameis comp, or maybe it was Brett who made the Jameis comp, and it was
Scott.
I think we want to see the good Jameis come out. Man, the second half was really rough. I'm not, last year we saw the numbers. The turnover worthy throw rate was pretty high. The off target throw rate was pretty high. It was really high last week. He really needs a bounce back spot, and it does not help that DeAndre Hopkins couldn't play last week. He only played on 30% of the snaps. And when he gets back, man, it's going to be interesting to see what he's got left in the tank, because he's dealing with an MCL injury, and those kind of tend to linger. So it's a really rough start here for just this entire group.
Brett, is Will Levis a guy if you scheme it up, he can pull the trigger and throw the ball anywhere on the field, but you ask him sit back there, read defense, go through progressions. I mean, I don't know. What do you think of where Will Levis is? Only one game, but it was much of the same.
He's got a lot of arm talent, and he's a mobile dude. Like, you should be able to do a lot with him. The thing that strikes me as weird is the Callahan offense is all about timing and rhythm. That is not Will Levis's game. He wants to throw piss missiles off his back foot all day. That's what he wants to do, Like, where's YOLO ball Will Levis at? We need Jameis.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
Right.
Yeah.
So
I thought he had a little Tannehill in him. Am I crazy? I mean, coming out, I'm like, you know what? He kind of reminds me of Tannehill a little bit. But I will say this: if what's that?
Deceptive mobility like Tannehill for sure.
Yeah. But also a guy like you want him. You probably want him in a run-heavy offense. Well, I don't know, Graham. This is not going to necessarily be a run-heavy offense, right?
No, they'll be pretty balanced. Callahan wants by nature to throw it. I think this week they're probably going to try to run it a little bit more, especially seeing the Jets' defensive line just get moved off the ball last week.
Right.
I'm pretty concerned about Ridley in this spot. I wrote him up as a sit-em, even though he's going to get 7 or 8 targets. It's just big concern with Levis's accuracy and really tough spot.
Garrett Wilson probably won't see a shadow from L'Jarius Sneed for what it's worth. He will see Sneed quite a bit, though, probably 40% of the time, I'm guessing. Moving on here, the Week 2 matchup podcast, Giants at Commandos. And Brett, I'll go to you. Is this a game where we should expect all the key players, or at least most of them, to come through? Because both defenses sucked in Week 1.
Yeah, I talked about it on your bet show yesterday, John. I like Daniel Jones and Malik Neighbors in the spot. Listen, Daniel Jones' career passer rating when kept clean is in the 90s. His completion percentage is over 72% when kept clean. Washington literally has no pass rush. It's the worst defensive line unit in the league. I should say edge unit. Their tackles are obviously good. The worst edge unit in the league. He should realistically have some time. He's played much better in his career when he doesn't have pressure. So Malik Neighbors, he was a relatively productive considering the sum of parts from the offense last week, right? Like, considering what they put on the field, he was pretty productive. I think Washington last week against Tampa was probably the worst collective secondary performance I've ever seen from a team. Tampa Bay Bucks wide receivers running wide open on every play. And these weren't coverage busts either. These were just dudes losing over and over and over.
Yeah.
I think Neighbors should murk these guys, and Daniel Jones should have time to get it to him.
And Graham, didn't they just put the corner on IR, or he's out for the game? Why am I not? Forbes, right?
Forbes,
I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, though, Graham.
Yeah.
Your thoughts?
Yeah, I don't know if it matters too much either, because Benjamin St. Juste was just getting roasted, to Brett's point.
Yeah.
Man, I thought it was actually kind of a good thing that Neighbors ended up with a decent game, even though Jones was such a train wreck. We were all over that, though. I think we kind of called that last week. The weird thing, though, is like, I wanted Neighbors to get the Wandale stuff. Like, I wanted him to get the design stuff near the line of scrimmage. 12 targets, 44 yards.
But then what does Wandale do? Nothing. That's probably the answer.
I don't think he's anything special. But yeah, I mean, that would make your offense better. Wandale doing nothing and you giving all those targets to Neighbors.
True.
I want to see Neighbors get some design stuff. I want to see some schemed up stuff near the line of scrimmage. We were talking, a minute ago about trying to get Anthony Richardson on track. Let's get Malik Neighbors a couple of design targets and get Daniel Jones going early in this game. But it's such a good spot for Neighbors. There's no way you're taking him out of lineups. The bigger question to me is Terry McLaurin. Brett, I wanted to kick it to you for what you thought on McLaurin. Him and Jaden Daniels just missed on, a 75-yarder that would have saved McLaurin's day. But, what were your thoughts on him in this game and just generally on the Commanders' passing offense?
I felt like there was a concerted effort in Daniel's first game to just get him playing fast. His time to throw in this game was under 2.2. You never see that in the NFL. That's like Tua stuff. Like, Tua gets rid of the ball that quickly. So that was definitely a concerted effort. I don't know that we see that again. I think that really hurt McLaurin, though, because a lot of what he does is that X-type receiver stuff where it's more downfield. He's running a 15-yard dig or a flag or a post, or it's just hard for that stuff to develop when you're getting the ball out that quickly. this feels like a good spot for him to bounce back a little bit. I know he's probably going to draw a lot of Deontay Banks, who's been real shaky so far in his NFL career. Plus, Jaden Daniels has the ability to improvise and get going on scramble drill. We'll see.
Graham, what were your thoughts on the backfield workload here? Brian Robinson, would he get one fewer target than Eckler? I mean, Robinson is a pretty damn good receiving back. He's you got a little Rashad White there. I see a little, I don't know if he's got the hands, but your thoughts on the backfield in week 1?
Yeah, I've always been a Brian Robinson fan. Just, super I thought he was a pretty underrated player coming to college. Just kind of one of those guys where, you can kind of throw him in any offense, and I thought he'd be pretty good. The big news to me, though, John, was Eckler was just not involved in this run game. 12 carries to 2 for Eckler. Yeah. Eckler did double up Robinson in routes, but it's a compartmentalized split, but at least we know Robinson's going to be the early down guy. We know he's going to be involved near the goal line. Daniels obviously scored the 2 touchdowns on those design carries, but yeah, I think this is a good spot for Robinson. They're favored. Washington's not going to be favored in many games this year. B-Rob is an RB2, is pretty solid this week, I think.
I mean, Eckler does this another 2-3 weeks. I mean, I may start saying he can probably drop his ass, because if he doesn't score, I don't know what he's going to do for you. Maybe he catch some balls here, but I don't think he can count on
He looked okay to me. He looked okay.
Yeah,
he had one catch where he got up the field and he made a little cut. Looked okay, but yeah, B-Rob's going to be heavily involved.
Yeah, I mean, if you're not getting the touchdowns or opportune chances, I mean, now we're totally relying on catches, and I'm not sure we can do that every week with Daniels. Rams at Cardinals. Man, Brett, I thought Tyler Johnson looked really good. So I would bet on him in the Puka spot. Your thoughts? I mean, Demarcus Robinson's been around the NFL for 26 years. Very long career for him. But your thoughts on the Puka-less Rams?
I like it's going to be really tough to predict. I'll just say that. Tyler Johnson, I've always liked him. He just doesn't have the juice, or hasn't had the juice, to be a functional receiver. The 63-yarder, it did come with some poor tackling effort from the Lions. I think Brian Branch missed the tackle right at the line of scrimmage and ends up going 63 yards downfield. So I'm not sure how much we can extrapolate from that, because otherwise he had, 4 catches for 15 yards? That's not great.
That's true.
I'm a big fan of the rookie Whittingham. Sorry, what is it? Jordan
Whittington. Yeah,
Whittington. Jeez, sorry. Yeah. Jordan Whittington from Texas. He reminds me of Puka Nacua. I said this in the preseason watching him play. Just very similar play style. Kind of plays his hair on fire mentality. He's a great yak guy. But ultimately, with this game script, I think you're going to see another 21 targets for Cooper Kupp. So,
no doubt.
We're taking that, baby. Jordan Whittington, by the way, sounds like some sort of English lord or something. He's got some sort of a state.
Lord Jordan Whittington, please step forward. I actually thought, yeah, exactly. I thought Tyler Johnson reminded me of Bobby Trees, so maybe I'm being clouded by that. Just thinking about
I just think Stafford is unbelievable. I just think this guy is cooking. He had the obviously really bad interception at the end of the first half, but basically since he came back from that thumb injury last year, he's been top 5 quarterback in football. He's averaging nearly 300 passing yards per game. So, John, I think your Tyler Johnson call really just is like a Matthew Stafford call, just balling the hell out.
Yeah, sure.
Demarcus Robinson's going to play that X receiver role. I don't think his role changes very much at all, but Cardinals did just get rinsed for 152 yards and 2 touchdowns by Bills wideouts. How about Kyren Williams, man? We spent all that time worrying about Blake Corum. It's Kyren Williams once again, 91% of the snaps, got every single snap in the red zone. I mean, it's just wheels up with this guy. McVay loves him, absolutely loves him.
All I would say is I hear you, and I never thought that Kyren was going to lose his job. I will say, though, he might if he starts wearing down late in the season. I mean, let's see where he is late in the season. I could see him, again, starting to wear down. Kyren gets a little Corum gets a few more opportunities. But, yeah, no doubt about it. Kyren is – the safe, steady, reliable guy you can give some volume to here. Brett, let's get thoughts on Kyler because, once again, same old out there spinning out of the pocket a little prematurely, blowing any chances of completing downfield balls, and obviously that was a factor with Marvin Harrison. I already regret not preaching a little caution. Not that I was kind of pushing Harrison at all, but he was on my list, I believe. Your thoughts on what we saw, how flukish that was, one game. Kyler, by the way, news alert, still really short.
Yeah. Kyler did not play well in this week one game. Obviously, the Bills have a pretty good defense, but, man, he was rough. He just was not seeing it. He's had a slow trigger going back to Oklahoma, so that shouldn't really be a surprise. But he's holding the ball over 3 seconds per dropback. That is just insane, man. And in today's NFL, with the pass rushers you're going against, that just seems crazy. Going against the Rams pass rushers, I think they have a little more talented, a little more high upside athletic pass rushers. Very young. Byron Young, Braden Fisk, Kobe Turner, Jared Verse. Like, these guys can get after it. If Kyler tries doing that against them, I feel like his day could be pretty rough. So I don't know. I did not like what I saw on tape. And then usually the thing that he can hang his hat on, he's a very accurate passer. He just his arm was failing him over and over, despite the efforts to break the pocket and hold onto the ball forever. So,
Brett, real quick,
I feel like Kyler's going to be. Go ahead, Graham.
No, I was just going to ask about MHA. What were your thoughts on him? Because Bills obviously play a ton of too high. Was it scheme related? Like they just weren't letting MHA get deep, or was it just to your point about Kyler just having a bad game?
It was a little bit of both. Kyler having a bad game. Christian Benford is one of the more underrated corners in the league, and Harrison just they lacked creativity with him too. They weren't like it was like, hey, you're just going to run this vertical-esque route tree. We're not going to let you really work back to the sticks. He wasn't getting involved in scramble drill at all, which is concerning, right? Because Kyler's going to do a lot of that. You're going to need to see a little more effort from him in that regard. He's so good though, you would expect him to bounce back. I don't know. Some of the stuff Scott Barrett pulled about his GPS. Did you see this stuff? Like bottom 2 percentile in average run speed for a wide receiver's debut ever.
Yeah.
Like not good stuff. Like really kind of damning. Like makes you wonder if he's playing with an injury or something. Kind of really weird stuff.
Oh, well, our separation stuff didn't really do him any favors either, man. He was dead last in ass this week. So.
Dead last.
Yeah.
You're talking Harrison.
Yep, talking Harrison.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, you almost wonder. Wow. I'll have to go back and look at that again, or keep an eye on it going forward.
I do think we need to save the panic though, because Bills play a ton of too high. Rams are going to play way more one high. Hopefully that gives him some one-on-ones. But
right.
We were just talking through Malik Neighbors. Neighbors got, I think, 1 or 2 design targets last week. I want Neighbors to get like 5 or 6 every week. MHJ needs to get a couple of those this week.
Let's go to Pittsburgh, Denver. I mean, we got good data on Cortland Sutton, for example, against like man single high, but yet now he's got Porter, and we've got pretty good data on Pickens against man, but he's got Surtain. Brett, what did you think of Pickens last week? Like, man, he came through and he just missed a couple of big plays. Like George almost like last week wouldn't be denied.
I thought on tape that was his best game as a pro for sure, by far. His route running looks much improved. Even like watch him in the preseason, I felt like his route running was lazy. It was like he ran the wrong route on several plays in the preseason. But then this game, it looked really crispy. He looked dialed in. He was running 1,000 miles an hour. Really kind of enjoyed everything I saw with Pickens. First time I've probably ever said that since he's been in the NFL. So
wow.
I'm feeling good about him. He draws another tough matchup though, going from AJ Terrell to Surtain this week. So
Surtain, yeah.
And Surtain's a better corner than AJ Terrell is too. So,
I mean, Brett, before we go to Graham, any thoughts on like their Steelers are winning this game, and then they'll be 2-0 with Justin Fields. Like, I mean, Fields seemed to play a clean game. Like, how much better could Russ Wilson have been in week 1 than what Fields was this past Sunday?
Yeah, they're so similar in that they're just not going to attack certain parts of the field. I think the one thing Russ would give you is maybe some more downfield attack where Fields just wasn't willing to let it loose. But the flip side of that, though, is you're going to get some more designed QB run stuff with Fields where you can keep the chains moving that way, kind of keep the offense on schedule. So there is a trade there. But if they go 2-0, and I do think they will, because this is another house of horror spot for Bo Nix here. Rough start having to go against the Mike McDonald defense, and now this defensive line. Oh, my God. That's what misery is made of right there. So I feel bad. But, yeah, Justin Fields is 2-0. How do you then go to Russell Wilson when the team's gelling and playing well? I don't know.
Graham, do you think Fields can keep this job?
Yeah, I think I saw a quote after the game, or maybe it was yesterday or today, where Arthur Smith was like, "Yeah, we didn't throw over the middle of the field because Jesse Bates is really good. I didn't want him to wreck the game." It's like, bro, you wouldn't have thrown over the middle of the field. Russell Wilson was your quarterback. These, like both of these guys are, to Brett's point, limited. Fields, though, I always said this. I said this the whole offseason. The reason I was drafting a little bit of Fields is because he gives them the opportunity to have a little more layered run game, and we saw that. Fields had 10 design carries in Week 1. 10. I didn't think Artie Smith would dial up 10. That was the same amount as Jalen Hurts, and we got to throw that away a little bit. Jalen Hurts gets pushed a ton. For fantasy, I mean, Fields is like a low-end quarterback one because of the running. But, man, it looked all right. No mistakes last week. They weren't thrown over the middle of the field anyway. Yeah, I think they might keep rolling it out. The one direction I want to go in this game real quick, Jaylen Warren did not play very much last week. 28% of the snaps, coming back from a hamstring injury. I think we see him ramp up this week. Obviously, it's a great spot. Najee's going to get the ball, 18, 19, 20 times again, but I do think we're going to see that touch split get a little bit closer this week and moving forward.
But, Brett, Najee looked fleet of foot. Like, he looked good. I thought he looked very good.
I thought he looked good, yeah. I know the yards per carry don't suggest he looked good, but I thought he looked much better than the production laid out. And he's got a really nice matchup this week, as Graham pointed out. Like they should pound Denver on the ground in this game. Pound.
Yeah, they had a negative 9% pass rate over expectation last week. This week it's going to be like negative 15, negative 20. Yeah. Like they're just going to run all day long.
O-line looked good, John.
I mean,
Sorry, Zach Frazier, rookie center. He looked like a bouncer at a club, just throwing people out all day long.
Exactly. That was very high on their running game. And I had Najee and Warren on my list. I was very into it, and I was so disappointed about the preseason. So that's great. And then again, like you said, Denver got pushed around last week. So Bo Nix, man, like it's only one game, but if Bo Nix is still doing this, mid-October, Brett, I mean, how worried would you be already about Bo Nix?
Well, I'm assuming the schedule's good. I haven't looked ahead. I'm assuming it lightens up. These are legitimately two of the worst possible matchups for a rookie QB. Like Mike McDonald, I broke this down last week on this very show. He was going to confuse the hell out of Bo Nix all day long. We saw that happen.
You're right.
This week, having to go against this D-line. And the thing about Pittsburgh is they get home with 4. They don't have to blitz. So you're getting dropped 7 on every single play. There's just nobody open. It's so congested. It's just really tough to operate. The thing that frustrated me most about Nix's tape last week, though, is he knew there was pressure coming and he didn't get the ball out quicker. There was no effort to get rid of it, to check it down. I mean, he ended up checking it down a lot, right? But it was late in the play. And that's ultimately why they couldn't sustain drives. He was just sitting back there, just letting pressure come to him. It was super weird.
Let's go to Cincinnati at KC. Speaking of super weird, like, man, I don't know what is going on there with the vibes in Cincinnati. I will say again, I even wrote in the Good Vibes, Bad Vibes article in like early August, like Zach Moss has got to be the early down back. I mean, he just has to be. And I still like Chase Brown some reason, but I mean, your thoughts on the Bengals offense here, Brett? Not like we're going to see probably T. Higgins here. I continually ask, why is Joe Burrow in the gun 100% of the time? It's just, what do you think of the vibes here with the Cincinnati Bengals, with the world champs coming here, with Spagnuolo getting ready to dial it up, and we got pass pro issues again?
Yeah, you just kind of nailed everything. I don't trust anyone I don't even trust Jamar Chase right now. I know that's crazy to say, right? But like, Spags is going to be able to scheme it up too and kind of take him out of the game a little bit. This is just rough. The vibes are not good. Burrow, his average time to throw last week was 2.35, which is insanely fast, and he was still pressured on over a third of his dropbacks. So I don't know what to do with that. Like, O-line issues, guys not getting open. They really need T. Higgins back for sure, but they couldn't really get the run game going too well. I mean, it finally kind of popped late in the game, but just a little too late. So,
Graham, what are your thoughts on what pops out this game? I'll tell you, I like Kelsey to bounce back here since he's been a good matchup for a while. Maybe Reishi doesn't go off in this one here, but what do you got here for this game?
Yeah, just to echo the point on Burrow real quick, Chiefs are going to play a ton of too high this week. I would like to see the Bengals come out and try to run against those looks just to give a little bit of pressure off Burrow. Be interesting to see. You know, I think Zach Moss is definitely in play as an RB2. On the opposite side, you know, Bengals, you know, they do what they do. They run a lot of one high. I think this is a spot for Mahomes to get Xavier Worthy deep. They have some bulletin board material thanks to Cam Taylor-Britt, saying that Xavier Worthy just is fast and doesn't do anything else. We'll see. We'll see about that. I think Chiefs smash. I think they absolutely smash the Bengals in this spot. I think Mahomes has a classic Mahomes game. Our boy Rashee Rice, you know, obviously being the 1A. But, yeah, I'm with you. I think this is a spot for Kelsey to kind of get back on track, and Xavier Worthy is going to be flying out there.
Let's move to the Bears and the Texans. Brett, back to you with Caleb Williams. You know, speed of the game stuff, I don't know. I mean, it was worrisome. It's one of those deals where, like, yeah, I mean, I'm definitely not feeling warm and fuzzy about it, but I'm still trying my best not to panic. What do you think of that and the matchup here against Houston?
Yeah, I can't reiterate enough that the QB play last week was just bad all the way around. So I don't want to kill Caleb Williams when everyone played bad. It was not a very good first start. And in fact, I think you make the argument if Will Levis didn't make the two boneheaded plays he did, Caleb probably had the worst day of the week. Offense couldn't, they didn't even have 150 yards total as an offense. So scary stuff. However, pretty good matchup this week. Really like DJ Moore in this matchup. Houston's secondary was beyond leaky, obviously against the Colts. I mean, how many, points did the Colts leave on the board with bad throws? I feel like if Caleb can just be a little settled down and a little bit more accurate than Anthony Richardson last week, they could have a huge day. Kamari Lassiter does not look like a starting caliber corner to me, and Texans are going to rely on him pretty much every snap as an outside guy. He's beatable for sure. So I think that's a matchup to exploit. You should see DJ Moore and him quite a bit this week.
Yeah, Graham, what is up with Keenan Allen?
Yeah, I was going to say Rome Odunze is probably going to miss this game too with a knee injury, and Keenan's got this heel thing. I think he's been dealing with this since the preseason. I mean, he's a warrior. Yeah, Keenan's a warrior, man. He's probably going to try and suit up and play, but I was already kind of earmarking this as a DJ Moore spot too, Brett, and this is just even more fuel to that fire with these guys a little beat up. Man, Texans, this is a really interesting game because, Bears defense is much, much improved. But, Brett, I know you said, quarterback play was really bad last week. CJ Stroud was the one exception to that rule. He's just freaking awesome, man. Midseason form with all these guys. The biggest takeaway I had from the Texans, beyond Joe Mixon looking like a bell cow and looking awesome, the biggest takeaway I had, Stephon Diggs is now the slot receiver. They're going to play Tank Dell on the outside, and no receiver last year had a better ass on the outside than Tank Dell. So do not sell on Tank Dell. We're buying low on Tank. Dalton Schultz is probably going to miss this game, so Diggs is going to be heavily involved underneath. But Tank, this feels like a Tank spot where Stroud gets his guy going, especially on the deep downfield stuff. Really fun game.
Yeah, I like Tank out there in space, basically, right? I mean, it's like
he's impossible to cover. He's impossible to cover.
Yeah. Brett, how great did Joe Mixon look? I was agnostic this year, but geez, man. I know there were some bad data points about Joe Mixon in zone, but I'm like, that was his deal, wasn't it? Like a great zone runner. Bam, he looked very good in week one.
He's fine in zone. The thing that he's excellent with is his vision. That's probably his best trait. He's got good burst, good vision. He's at the stage where he's not going to make a ton of guys miss, right? But it looked pretty last week. He routinely made the most out of a little time and time. I don't even think he had an explosive run on the day, actually. Everything, though, was 4, 5, 6 yards, just every single carry. And there was mostly vision-driven. Like, it wasn't O-line killing the other team. It was Joe Mixon finding the right crease. So I thought he looked awesome.
Yeah, the O-line did create some room for him, too, as well. I mean, that's kind of what I thought, too. But, yeah, he looked great. He looked like just a perfect fit. And then last but not least, the Atlanta Falcons and the Philadelphia Eagles. I did an interview this week with Rich Gannon. Man, he is very concerned about Kirky and the lack of mobility and just everything that he showed in week one. Brett, to you, he has been an Eagles killer. It's a tough call because he was so bad last week, Kirky. Maybe he shook some rust off. Vic Fangio's defense, I thought, looked much improved, but I still don't have much of a pass rush. What are your thoughts here on the Falcons trying to bounce back in Philly? That's another one. That's not a good environment.
This game is, oh my gosh, it's driving me insane because Kirk looked awful last week. Jalen Hurts looked even worse. I mean, this is one of these guys has to get over, right? I mean, or is this just going to be a run game? Saquon versus Bijan. I don't know, but Kirk, the mobility thing scares me. Like, it doesn't seem like he's even willing to try to move. Like, I don't think we charted him coming off his spot one single drop back, which that's like
he's gotten less and less mobile over the last 4 or 5 years. Slowly. It's like you can see it before your eyes.
It was a literal sitting duck type of situation. It felt like.
Yes. Yeah. Like it stretched beyond just being immobile. Like Jared Goff is immobile, but he's not a sitting duck. Kirk literally didn't move. He just stood there, and when the ball came out, it came out. And if it wasn't coming out, he just took the hit on the chin like a man. Like that's all there was to it. It was kind of crazy.
I mean, TJ.
Well, that was not a bad thought. Yeah, go ahead, Graham.
I was just going to say TJ Watt wrecked that game, but I mean, to put your quarterback basically on an island on every single play with no play action, I did not understand that game plan at all. We got to see. The whole point of Kirk Cousins is to, you run the ball and you do stuff off play action, right? I mean, that's the entire point of Kirk Cousins.
Here's the problem: if you're really lacking that mobility, you can't use play action because it requires footwork. And Zach Robinson from the McVay tree wants play action involved. They just can't do it
the Michael Penix pick finally makes sense then.
Exactly. They just probably shouldn't have coughed up the $180 million or whatever.
No, they didn't need to do that, did they? They didn't need to pay that $180 million in sunk cost. But yeah.
Ooh. I mean, if this is the case in a month, guys, I mean, they got to sit him down, don't you think, Brett?
Oh, absolutely. And he's going to get himself hurt too. Because he's not even trying to evade pressure. That's the thing that's scary. Like, he's going to get himself hurt. So.
I mean, Brett, you know way more. You've watched way more. It seemed to me Kirk can't even drive off his back foot. I saw a few plays where he was, like, lifting up his back right foot where he was, like, trying to get something out of it. And he seems just gimpy. Like, it's a huge concern.
Yeah, the ball was dying, too. Not to mention Drake London got absolutely locked up by Joey Porter Jr. Like, absolutely locked up. So, didn't really have a lot of places to
maybe a better matchup this week for Drake London. He's got a chance, I'd say. But again, the Kirky environment and that element is scary. A.J. Brown probably going to see A.J. Terrell, probably going to be a Devontae Smith game. Any thoughts, Brett, in closing on Jalen Hurts? I guess it probably doesn't matter. Still going to probably crush it for fantasy. But NFL-wise, man, this is not good dating back to last year.
Yeah, he finished the season on a low note last year, and it looks possibly worse this year. His brain just seems broken. Fundamentally, he's not doing the quarterback things he was doing at a high level. He's taking risks that he doesn't need to take. He's trying to do things that just aren't even remotely there. So last year, like, it's evolved now. Like last year, it started as just he wasn't seeing it, right? It was basically like Jalen Hurts run or a bomb downfield. Now we've evolved to he's trying to fit the ball into windows that don't exist. And that's when you're missing linebackers and buzz flat defenders, like you're just mentally not processing things the way you should be. Something's amiss there. I'm not sure what it is, but it's funky.
How about tush push was like not as effective, clearly.
They had the one where it looked vintage, and then there was two other ones that I think they succeeded twice, right? And then one got stuffed.
Let's keep in mind that field was a piece of crap too. That was a horrible field. Yeah,
as Jordan Love can attest. Well, that'll wrap it up here. We're going right on game time here. About an hour and 15 minutes. It's pretty much typical. It could have went a little longer, but we had too much good stuff to impart here. We thank our guy Tommy T. We'll let everyone go. I, by the way, ordered a pizza online during the live stream that I got to go pick up. So that is multitasking. I'll tell you that. For Graham Barfield and Brett Whitefield, I'm John Hansen. Good luck tonight, and we'll catch you next time here at FantasyPoints.com, and we'll see you next week for another edition of Matchup Points.
What? Why are you shaking your head?
You're welcome.